right, let's go to Tom Murphy here.
Tom, bring some sanity
on the
in
Morning
here.
Rush. Tom, good morning, man. Just kind of the question we asked our listeners this morning is why do you think the Hogs lost to LSU? And Ben brought up 0 for 10 on third down. If you had to pick out one selective data or one pointer play that you think stands out the most, why do you think Arkansas fell to the LSU Tigers on Saturday?
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm here to bring tranquility and serenity to the proceedings. There's a lot of data points you could go to, the third downs and LSU's third downs. I mean, they converted so many of their 13 out of 20 or 12 out of 23, whatever it was. They converted so many of them by a foot or a yard or maybe 2 yards, so many of them because that was their game plan. I think the single biggest factor was their 2 weeks without a game, and they got basically 2 weeks of study on Arkansas, and they came up with a great offensive game plan, and they schemed them up defensively. They schemed them up. Arkansas couldn't get its run game going, and even though they hurt them with the big plays, they did not allow Arkansas to establish their run game. And it just so happens that Felipe Franks had one of his weaker games. I just think that in the course of the game, he made a few bad decisions, not getting enough air on the Trey Knox, or as he said, waiting one more second for Knox to be even further open. And then I think he should have given to Trelon Smith. I don't know who his guy he's looking at is on that option play down on the goal line early in the fourth quarter. But you saw Trelon Smith basically had clear sailing from the 5 down to the goal line. There was one guy. And you've got to think that Trelon Smith, with one guy to just power through or wriggle past, would have scored that touchdown. So, it was just an unfortunate thing. Although they showed a lot of backbone, a lot of spirit, they came back from 17-7 down, got the lead. I think all in all, because of their COVID-19 numbers on the defensive front, it all just kind of added up to a very narrow loss. Just a heartbreaker because you win that one and say they ruled correctly in the Auburn game, you could be sitting here at 5-3 right now. It's a little heartbreaking. Yeah,
and Tom, on the other, I mean, if you really want to do, you could be 5-3, but you could also be 0-8 based on how close some of these games have been. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like you've gotten some good fortune in some games and some bad fortune in others. But I think you brought up a good point that needs to be stressed. No Dorian Gerald, no Julius Coates, no Isaiah Nichols, no Xavier Kelly, no Eric Gregory, no Zach Williams. And I'm excited about the future of Deshad Stewart and some of these other guys. But, Tom, they just got manhandled for the most part up front. Now, it could have been worse based on how many young guys they had to play, but you could tell the depth on the defensive line was a big issue all game, and LSU was able to get in a lot of third and manageables for TJ Finley.
They really did. And, of course, once they knew where Arkansas had the personnel issue, they just stuck on the ground. I mean, and they got so many 4, 5, and 6-yard gains on the ground on first down. And their O-line has taken a whole lot of criticism, so they had to come back from this 2-week layoff and kind of prove themselves, and they did. And it's not like they didn't just get completely you use the word manhandled. I think they got beaten more often than they won, for sure. But it was like a death of 1,000 cuts, because it was 4, 5, and 6-yard runs. They got one 22-yard run where I think Davis Price bounced around right edge, but otherwise, it was just small wins on almost every run play. And Arkansas had some run blitzes. Greg Brooks got in there. Jonathan Marshall tackled guys behind the line of scrimmage. But their lack of depth certainly proved through. I mean, they gave Enoch Jackson a couple snaps, and I saw him get flattened on one play. So he's got to improve. He's got to get stronger if he wants to play. And Marcus Miller, I mean, I know he was in on some plays, but you want your studs out there, and maybe they'll get some of them back from Missouri.
And to your point, 49 LSU rushes for 148 is a 3-yard average. So that's it goes right along with what you're saying. So knowing that we've beat the horse of 0-10 on third down, they were 1 of 1 on fourth down. That brings us to the call of the field goal with 1:24 to go, 4th and 3. Finally, Arkansas had gotten a sustained drive because that was the issue with 8 of their 13 drives going 4 plays or less, resulting in punts or the interception. So your opinion on the call to not go for it when you hadn't had a lot of success there, but certainly field goals at that range have not shown to be successful throughout the course of the season. What's your thoughts, or what do you make of the call there with 1:24 to go to tie the game rather than extend the drive?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it at all because what was the yardage needed? Was it 3?
3. It's 4th and 3.
4th and 3. And
I'm sorry.
No, they had to complete a 4th and 3 early, like you said.
Right. They'd only hadn't converted a third down, only 1 4th down in the game at that point.
You got to. I understand going for it there because if you don't, then are you second guessed. You're saying you don't trust your field goal team to make a 44-yard field goal, so you go for it. Here's the thing: 2 LSU guys. I watched the replay, and I don't know what the ruling would have been. But 2 LSU guys did who were in 4-point stances, lifted their hands and pounded the ground, right before the snap. Back-to-back, number 7 and number 11 both did this. And I'm wondering if a lineman reacts to that if they get 5 extra yards. I mean, it's in the past. I don't know. But I don't think you're supposed to be doing that. You're trying to draw the other team, and 2 guys did it. So they just had Jay Ward, who'd been beaten earlier in the game. He makes the last 2 plays of the game. He breaks up the swing pass to Trelon Smith, and that was another thing. Felipe and Trelon Smith just could not get on the same page on those swing passes, and a couple times they were big-time open, and I sure think he would have converted the 3rd and 3 if he had been able to. Well, there was another defender there. Anyway, and then Jay Ward blocks the field goal, and just unfortunate. They have not had great success on field goals over 40 yards this year for sure, but you can't pass up the chance to try to tie the game there.
And we won't get the chance to visit Thursday with a holiday, but, one of the things I'm really watching is this team goes back to doing the testing. We know that, as we mentioned earlier, the defensive players that were out, Rakeem Boyd was out, so Arkansas was certainly shorthanded. As we go through this week and we get down to these final 2 ball games, and this being a road game, I think, obviously we pay a lot of attention to what Sam Pittman says when we get the chance to listen during the week. I think very interesting just to follow what's going on with COVID testing, contact tracing, and seeing what information we're going to learn as we're now a day closer to the Missouri game.
No question. And I'm a little bit hazy on whether or not these guys, if they haven't tested positive at all, if they've been in quarantine, if they can get a couple, 3 negative tests and be reinstated or come out of quarantine. So we'll ask that question to Sam Pittman today. But Missouri will certainly tailor its game plan around. I mean, they've got a great running back, well, actually a great pair of running backs in Roundtree and Beatty, and they'll go to them and certainly try to exploit if Arkansas is still lacking on the D front in this game. But, you saw Mississippi State go into Georgia with 49 available scholarship guys the other day and put on a whale of a game. I mean, really great effort. And I'm actually glad to see that. I don't like to see teams just completely implode. So we know the Razorbacks. I mean, look, LSU was refreshed and had a really good game plan, and Arkansas still could have and would have and should have won the game. So I don't doubt that this is going to be a close game no matter what happens, but I do hope they're able to get some guys back off quarantine.
Tom Murphy with us, Whole Hog Sports, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Tom, you mentioned earlier, which I thought was an important point, that LSU almost had 2 weeks to game plan from Arkansas, and you saw that. I wonder, what were your impressions of TJ Finley as a true freshman quarterback? Looked pretty solid, fit some balls in some tight windows. What did you think about his performance against the Razorbacks?
Well, he did not have to shoulder the load of completing a lot of 3rd and 9s and all that, but he did. I think one of the biggest conversions of the game was that throwback over to Eric Gilbert. I think he converted a 3rd and 9 in the second half. That was huge because they were out of field goal range before that play. And I can't remember what the end result of the drive was, but it just kept that clock going, And he had a solid game. other than the intentional grounding he got right before their last touchdown, he didn't make a ton of mistakes. He didn't get picked. There was a couple of balls that maybe could have been. Grant Morgan broke one up. You got his hand on one that Fouché might have made a diving catch on. Buster Brown and Hudson Clark ran into each other on a deep ball that had a good shot at getting picked off. I just wish, and I know you guys haven't touched on it, but the Catalon calls, it still bothers me. I don't know what the result would have been if he'd stayed in the game. It's not like the Auburn game where the call decided the outcome of the game. This one you don't know. But that fumble, to say that there's no clear recovery, I mean, the ball's loose and somebody comes out of the pile with the ball. How's that not a clear recovery?
Yeah.
And you can say, well, Arkansas got the ball back a few plays later. But yeah, but it was 30, 35 yards down the field. And, they burned all that clock in the meantime. Who knows what could have happened if they had gotten that ball on the LSU 37, more opportunity to score.
It wasn't like the Auburn game where it was a game-deciding call. Does it impact the game? Yes. To what degree, I guess, is the discussion. Ty and I were discussing that in one of the breaks. Yes, it impacts the game, but I can't go as far as to say the clear and immediate recovery determination by replay decided the outcome of the game. I can't go. That's a bridge too far for me. So
it is, but it's just another item, another piece of information for Razorback fans. It's like, man, do we ever catch a break?
It's a break. And they ever screw up in our favor?
Well, they did, because that was a touchdown that Davis Price caught. I don't know how in the world that was not ruled a touchdown. It almost felt like a makeup call for the Catalon ejection that came just a few plays earlier. But they went to the replay booth so many times in that game. Someone asked Sam a question about it, and I was thinking, well, there was 4 or 5. No, there was like 7, 8, maybe even 9 replay booths, and they got some of them right. The spot on the Franks one, the spot on the Eric Gilbert catch that converted a 4th down, they got those right. But they missed Catalon, because how else is he turned his body and he basically hit him with his lower shoulder, hip, or side of his back. And then the Davis Price catch, he catches it, takes a couple steps, goes across the end zone with it, rolls over, and the ball comes out. That was a touchdown in my view. So, but they blew a few too.
Tom, we appreciate your time as always, man. I know we're not going to get the chance to talk to you on Thanksgiving, so we wish you and yours, if you get a chance to spend it with some family, have a great one, man.
Will do. Same to you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Tom.
Good stuff from Tom Murphy as always.